Namaskar and a very warm welcome to our week 17 Know Your Species, Know Your Zoo talk. This talk is being organized as part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which is a 75-week-long celebration to commemorate 75 years of India's independence, which falls on the 15th of August 2022. The Central Zoo Authority has embarked on taking the celebration forward through a massive outreach campaign entitled Conservation to Coexistence, The People Connect. Under the helm of this campaign, we will be showcasing 75 conservation priority species and 75 zoos, highlighting one species and one zoo each week. We're currently in week 70 of the celebration with the Gharial as the species in focus and the Rasikbeel Mini Zoo as the zoo in focus. So joined in today to speak to us on the species is Mr. Jalabdin, who is the project coordinator of the Gharial Ecology Project at the Madras Crocodile Bank Trust. Mr. Jalabdin is pursuing a doctorate on the species in focus from the Bharati Southern University, and his research on the species has provided many further insights about the acoustic signals and communications made by the gharials during the breeding season and territory marking especially. He will speak to us today more on the natural history, behavior, and the research findings from the project that has been ongoing for over a decade. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Yeah. Can you able to see my screen?
Yes, it's visible. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, stories are kind of a very sentimental things for everybody in life. So today I'm here to tell you about a unique story of this unique crocodilian species. Uh, just hold on a second. Let me prepare myself. Okay, so we are going to see about gharials today, but in India there are about three crocodilian species: saltwater crocodiles, muggers, and then gharials. Saltwater crocodiles mainly residing in the Coromandel coast as well as Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And muggers we can see everywhere else, like in ponds, lakes, and river system. Gharials are especially river species. So why unique? What's very unique about gharials? If you see in the name itself, gharials has been termed out from the Hindi word gara. If you see in this picture, there is an bulbous kind of a pot-like structure on the animal behind. So that's a male gharial. So usually male gharial develop the gara after they got matured. And then if you see the female, they don't have the gara. So this is the only crocodilian species that's having this sexual dimorphism in their appearance itself. And tell more about this unique habitat. So I'm studying gharials in Chambal River, which is the stronghold population of gharials. Like 85% of world's gharial population is living in Chambal. Why this river is very unique? So this is the only tri-state river in the whole India which has been managed by Uttar Pradesh Forest Department, Madhya Pradesh Forest Department, Rajasthan Forest Department. And more than that, it is the only river sanctuary which is actually without having any barrages or dams for 425 kilometers. So this unique species is having this vast, unique habitat. This habitat mainly consists of islands like this, and then rocky river stretch. So the upper, if you can take the National Chambal Sanctuary, it can be divided into two, upstream and downstream part. The upstream part is above Dholpur, which is kind of a midway. So it's mostly rocky, and then you can see some islands also. But the downstream part is more like long sandy beaches. Like this. So this is an aerial shot of gharials basking in a long sandy beach during the cold time of the year. And unique family. So when I say about family, so that itself you can understand like gharial is a social animal. During the social behavior times of the year, So here you can see in this picture, you can see a big, large male gharial has been basking in the center, and behind you can see a lot of females has been in his breeding group. And then if you see concentrated towards the left side of the picture, you can actually see the small juveniles are actually basking over there. So this means that in this social system, so this is especially taken during the breeding time of the year. So the breeding group is forms a tight group of adult females with a male or two males associated with it, and then the smaller animals will automatically move towards the corner of the breeding group so that they can get the protection of the male during that breeding time also. And then unique displays. So gharials usually having this unique display thing. So usually during the breeding and social times, what they do is they will do like a surfer on the surface of the water, and they just surf to actually express their feelings towards the female, or to mark their territory, sometimes to challenge the other males, and sometimes for any external threat. So, for example, in this picture, you can actually see there is a mugger which is actually basking behind in between the breeding group of the females. So, this male is actually did this for this mugger. And then there's another unique behavior which is called tail wagging. So the established male in the territory, after the surfing, it just goes towards the sandbar, and then he will do like wagging his tail like a dog, but it's very huge, enormous tail. So it just splish and splash the water in that place. That actually mainly attracts the females as well as for other threats. So in here also you can actually see there is a mugger just basking in between the breeding group. And I'm going to show you a video here. Maybe I might play it twice. That is actually a popping of a male gharial. So when the male gharials actually establish their breeding group and all, so they need to communicate with the other females and all. So usually in crocodilian species, they use visual, acoustic, and as well as chemical communication. So gharials, especially this popping is very unique for gharials. Only gharials can do the popping. And if you see, this popping signal is actually have two big click kind of a pop sound, and then there is an exhale of breathing, and then as an inhale of the breathing, and then an exhale and an inhale, and then exhale, and then it went submerged. So this is kind of an elaborate thing of his whole communication. When this communication happens, it actually happens for a context. So for example, same attracting females, or for a challenger male who is challenging him, or for an external disturbance, like if some villages has been ended up with cattle near a basking group or somewhere, so he just can do that. Mainly, the my study actually revealed that the males are actually expressing their identity through this popping sound. The detail of the thing will come in my PhD thesis, so I don't have that much of time to cover all those aspects here. But yeah, so this is a unique way of Gharial's communication. And unique combat. So if in a breeding group, if there are more than a male, so what happens? So then the challenger will actually come and kind of challenge the dominant, and they will go like sword fight. But this fight is also very gentle if in the terms of their body size and all. So they just go like crossways towards the snout, but eventually the guy who is actually kind of enormous or kind of more powerful will end up in the back of the other one, and then eventually it start to swim on the top of the other one. So eventually the guy who actually lose the combat is go underneath submerged, and then he will just go out from the place. So the guy who actually won the fight will actually establish the territory and start to breed, and then it goes on. So unique parenting. So gharials are meant for a big parenting in both males and females. Like in Nepal and all, mainly females are taking over the parenting. So one of our collaborators, Phoebe Giffen, is actually studying about Nepal gharials in Chitwan. And we study the parenting of gharials in Chambal. Actually, gharials are colony nesters. So once the breeding is over, the female gharials will select a sandbar which is having an angle. So mostly the angle of elevation of the sandbar will be anywhere between 45 to 60, 70 and then the females will climb and they nest. So sometimes the colony is being ended up with 5 to somewhere 30 nests also in the same place. And wherever there is a big crush and wherever there is a lot of crush and the hatchling, there will be a single male who is guarding the whole hatchlings. So when I'm telling about the single male guardianship, actually this male is not actually the father of all the hatchlings over there. So which actually tells us about like the females which are bred in a different breeding group is actually ended up in nesting in a different nesting colony. But still the male is actually taking care of the hatchling. So this is behavior is called alloparenting, which is primarily meant for primates, but this is an unique crocodilian, so it's actually expressing an alloparenting behavior. And what about females? Yes, females also do parenting. So this is one of the webcam, an IR camera photograph of our monitoring system. So you can actually see the females with a lot of eye shines at the behind. So that's the hatchlings. And the females do attendantship and within so the beginning of the hatching, it will be like more frequent, but as soon as like third week and like after second week and third week and all, the parenting just fades away. And then usually this after this, mostly there will be a big monsoon. So during monsoon, they have interesting things to do, which I'm going to tell you in the next slide. So this is what. So mainly in monsoon, most of the adults actually feed during the monsoon. Like 90% of the diet is actually happening in the monsoon time. And most of the diet are fish. But very rarely we can see them actually eating turtles and sometimes crustaceans. And very rarely seen on attacking humans. As per like muggers or saltwaters, Gharial doesn't actually have big human-animal conflict. But in terms of when during the nesting and the hatching times, the adults are so kind of parenting. So when they are doing the parenting, they are so cautious about human interventions. And here, when I talk about a hatchling diet, so hatchlings, when they start to eat after the third week, or like in between the third week, so it starts from third week, and after that it starts to eat. But until the third week, they have a unique diet. So when they are hatch out, they have a big yolk sac on their belly. So they do an extensive basking to consume their energy from the yolk. So once that is all over, then they start to feed on fish fries, fishlings basically. And this is kind of a big thing in the zoo husbandry, and also people usually have the yolking issue. That's because they don't really bask very much. So that's one of a unique point that we can take it out from there. And unique migration. So actually, females are meant to move very long distances. I'm going to tell you about two examples here. So one is we've tagged one of the female, which is called Dinpura female. So we tagged her in over here near a place called Dinpura, and that animal is actually bred and did nesting in Dinpura itself in the same place. But after the monsoon, it actually moved 100 and 65 kilometers. After the second year, it actually did on the leftmost red dots. So that's where it went and did the second year breeding and nesting. And then now the same animal moved down all the way to the left point, to the right point here during the monsoon. So these kind of long movements is being taken by the females in sort of getting feed in one place and nesting and breeding in other places. This is possible only, I think, in Chambal because it's an open river. The river is still like kind of open flowing. So this is the same female, which you can see the satellite tag, and this is the female, which is in the breeding group. The second example is the Gareta juvenile. So we tagged this animal in 2013 and we tracked this animal until 2014 monsoon. But after that, this animal actually got missing. But in 2020, we recaptured the same animal. You can see the animal here in the next slide. So if you see at the bottom of the slide, you can see that's the animal which we captured in 2013, the same animal in 2020. It moved 265 kilometers above and it settled there. So all these kind of information, we got it out through our research only. So our research actually mainly started as an telemetry research, and eventually we actually monitor not only the tagged animals, but also the animals which are along with the tagged animals. So it actually helps us to understand the more behavior ecology of the whole group system. And we are trying to implement other techniques like aerial survey techniques and acoustic techniques and DNA relationships. So we are actually collaborating with Lecons, Hyderabad, with Karthikeyan Vasudevan's lab to know more about the relativeness of the crash within or beyond the crash. When I talk about the problems, the main problems that gharials are facing is very common. So mainly anthropogenic effects, dams, water extractions, and sand mining and fishing. And for me, actually I'm be with this project for more than 6 years. As per my observation, the only way to solve the problems is to educate the young ones as well as the local staff over here along with all the forest department people. So there should be a collaboration between all these different stakeholders, and we have to put the environmental ecology in common man's perspective so that it can be understood by all these various stakeholders for the betterment of the species. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I like to acknowledge UP Forest Department, MP Forest Department, and Rajasthan Forest Department, and MOFCC for supporting our management work. And also, I like to thank our funders, national and international funders. Also, lot but not least, CZA for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jalabin, for giving insight into the work that you're doing, as well as giving an overview of the kind of research that is possible. We will now move on to our Know Your Zoo part of today's talk. So, joined in today to speak to us from the zoo is is Miss Angelina Bhutia, who is the Divisional Forest Officer of the Bihar Forest Division and the Officer in charge of the Rasikbeel Mini Zoo. She has been working for close to 2 decades for the welfare and management of forests in the West Bengal Forest Department and will speak to us more on the zoo today. So over to you, ma'am. I will share the presentation. Just a moment. Is this visible, ma'am? Please go ahead.
Good afternoon to all. Rasikbeel Mini very small zoo in the Kuchbihar district under the direction of Forest West Bengal. This is a rough layout of the map. As you can see, this portion, is the wetland portion, and since this zoo is very close to the river Raidak, the river Raidak originally originates from Bhutan, and it joins Torsha, which is a tributary of Brahmaputra. So we have the water flowing from Bhutan and Torsha. The difference of it is a wetland. Peel means a wetland, which is the border of West Bengal and Assam. It is very close to the Assam border, lower Assam. This park was earlier known as Ojomari Deer Park, established between the year 1993. This deer park was later declared as a Rasikbeel Mini Zoo, and it is under the administrative control of Navahat Beach under the Deer Park. Total area of the zoo is very small mini zoo area which has only a 20.17 hectare area, and the majority of the area is under the wetland. This is exactly the wetland which I think which covers almost 60% of the area, and then we have the zoo placed in and around the wetland. The vision of the zoo, since this is the only mini zoo in Kuchbihar district, and there's a lot of rescue animals. So we are now our vision is to establish Rasikbeel Mini as a rescue of all the wild animals. And since it is a very heavy populated rural area, so we'll try to do more zoo outreach programs for creating awareness among the people and the locals, especially the schools, with sensitization of the government officials as well as the now our mission is to introduce more deer species like barking deer and sambar in this zoo. We do have a deer enclosure. That's only for the deer enclosure. Native species like barking deer and sambar. This area is very famous for the Indian black-tailed subshell turtle, which is indigenously found in this district. We are now future plans to establish for conservation of nature interpretation center has been established to showcase the role and the Commonwealth and to create the awareness program. As I said, the main objective of the zoo, Rasikbeel Mini Zoo, will be give outreach programs to the school children, the APC members. Will be mostly targeting the women group, women self-help groups, Anganwadi, the Asha workers, and the school children. And the most foremost important is sensitization of the block level officers in the administration as well as the defense personnel and the parliament. Here. So these are the residents of the, as I said, it's a very mini zoo. We have three mammal species like the leopard, the spotted deer, and a fishing cat. We just have one fishing cat with us. We're trying to get a female very soon, and we have two reptiles. That's the Gharial and the python. We have four pheasants. And the macaw, we got the macaw. This is a seized macaw. The court cases are going on. This is a leopard. We have two leopards, Garima and Benjim. We're trying to get a male. Hopefully, we should get a male. The number of people in my inclusion is 136. 45 males, 76 females, 25 children. Since the population is very high, we'll now be shifting them to Pakata. We only had one male python, but now luckily we have two male pythons, one female python. We have two female pythons in our inclusion now. we have one fishing cat, which is also the state animal of this reserve. We're trying to get a female very soon. The jungle fowl, we have a total silver pheasant. We have three silver pheasants. We have one golden pheasant, 12 red jungle fowl. The macaw we got we have 15 macaws which we have seized recently. In total, I have 7 gharials, 2 males, 9 females. These are all rescued gharials from Punjinagar area and river. And we have been very successful in hatching gharials. This year we have welcomed 42 gharial hatcheries. This is the first hatchling. So I have got 2 ponds where we have kept the 11 gharials and 42 gharials which are just 2 months old. The sex is not identified as of yet. This was the way they lay the eggs. So the position of the eggs. So when we collected the gharial eggs, the position of the eggs and the depth in which the eggs were found, then it was maintained in the same depth. The eggs were placed in the same depth using the same sand where it was laid from the nest. We have collected the sand from the nest and then we have replicated it in the plastic process. The same depth the eggs were laid. This is how the egg collection were done. So we had placed, actually the eggs were laid somewhere around May because we were monitored in the CCTV and the eggs were placed in the hatchery on 1st April. When the eggs were taken out, this is the temperature of the nest. It was taken from 3 clutches. The temperature of the nest, as we can see, from ranging from 26.5 to 28 degrees centigrade. And after we took it in the hatchery, this was the depth in which the eggs were placed. The first clutch, we took from 2 depths. The 40.5, we took 7 eggs. 58 centimeter, we took 10 eggs. Similarly, from the second and the third clutches, it was taken. After the eggs were kept in the hatchery, the temperature of the hatchery was maintained from 30 to 40 degrees. We did a very crude method of monitoring the temperature by using lights. And the humidity was maintained to 70 to 85 degrees percentage using mist sprays. Out of 7, 5 eggs were hatched from the first clutch. So in total, out of the 59 eggs hatched, only 42 were hatched. This is how the eggs were placed as for the depth. These were what has happened is on the 55th day after the eggs were kept in the hatchery and ultrasonography was done because it was not hatching to see whether the eggs were viable or not, but it could not be confirmed. But only after 62 days, we got an report from Nandan Dr. Rakesh Mahapatra. He asked us to undergo X-ray. When we went on the 65th day was done, we could see the viability of the eggs, as you can see. This is in the 72nd from the 72nd day onwards, the eggs started hatching. So the first egg hatched on 27th May. 27th May, the first hatched. So we had 22 hatchlings. The 75th day, we had 15 hatchlings. The 69th day, we had 5 hatchlings. So in total, 42 hatched out of 15. Means that means we got 90%, more than 90% of those successful. Naturally not heeded.
Ma'am, would you like me to play the video now?
Can I play the video now?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Is this visible now? Oh.
ঘড়িয়ালের ক্ষেত্রে একটা হচ্ছে টেম্পারেচার মানে 29 ডিগ্রি সেন্টিগ্রেড থেকে 34 ডিগ্রি সেন্টিগ্রেড এর মধ্যে কিন্তু সবসময় মেনটেন করতে হয়। আর রিলেটিভ হিউমিডিটি মোটামুটি হচ্ছে আপনার ওই 74 থেকে 75% এইটা মেনটেন করতে হয় যখন ইনকিউবেশন পিরিয়ডটা চলে। মোটামুটি হচ্ছে আপনার 72 দিনের হচ্ছে ইনকিউবেশন পিরিয়ড। অবশ্যই প্লাস মাইনাস কিছু ডেজ হতে পারে সেই জায়গার লোকাল যে অ্যাটমসফেরিক কন্ডিশন সেটাকে মাথায় রেখে। যারা আপনার হচ্ছে আপনারা কোচবিহারের লোকজন আছেন তাদের জন্য এটা খুশির খবর। এবং শুধু তো আমি কোচবিহার বলবো না, যে লার্জার যে নর্থ বেঙ্গলের ল্যান্ডস্কেপ, সেই নর্থ বেঙ্গল এবং সর্বোপরি ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল আর কি, যেহেতু ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলেই এটা সর্বপ্রথম হলো, তো এটা আমাদের
what we have planned, we'll be doing in the coming days, 7 days we have planned. We have an awareness program regarding the children sanitation drive, the clear enclosures, sensitization of local level officers will be done. With the education. all in all, the local people, yeah,
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing an overview of the zoo as well as an overview of the Gharial, the recent Gharial hatching that has been done and the process that was successful. So we now move on to the question and answer session for today's talk. So we will take questions for the species talk first. So Mr. J, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right, sir. So the first question for you is that what is the mating system seen in Gharials and at what age do they attain maturity?
It seems like in Chambal, it's different from the other population as far as we know. Uh, Chambal in females and males attain their maturity around 10 years, and males attain their maturity around 14 plus years. In other systems, it is a little bit faster. Like in Nepal and all, we actually seeing them attaining more early, like 8 years or 6 years also.
Right. And the next question for you is that is the migration that you mentioned in this that you mentioned in your research done by Gharials, is it seasonal or do they return to their original sites if it's seasonal?
Yeah. Yeah, so it is seasonal and it's mainly happened during right this time of the year, which is monsoon. During monsoon, most of these animals congregate in main river confluences. Why they are going in the river confluences is mainly because there will be more fish concentrations in that place. So as I told in the presentation, mainly adults do this movement and especially females do the longest movements and males do a shorter movements. And the 90% of the adults feed is actually happening during the monsoon only. So we rarely see any adults have actually eating throughout the year. So they actually feed heavily in this monsoon, and then they do the social things. So and they do go back to the same locations year after year. We did see that.
All right. And the next question for you is, I think it's in line with that only. It says that do the Gharials show site fidelity, and has there been any study done to assess what is the home range if they maintain any?
I didn't got the second part of the question.
The second part of the yes, the second part of the question says that has there been any study done on the home range of the species if they maintain any?
So it's actually depends on the individual gharial. So as I mentioned, I just gave you only two examples. There are some more examples, and there are some more gharials which are actually having very tight site fidelity. Like for example, we actually tagged a very younger male in a place called Nadigaon in 2014. So he is having very just enough gara, and we thought that he will move widely, but he didn't. So he just stayed there and. The wonderful thing he did is he actually did parenting before he even started breeding. So he's actually had a big site fidelity and staying in the same place. Even during monsoon also, there was a big nala which is coming into this particular place. So he just stays near the nala. So because he just needed two river or a nala or any water confluences where the fish concentration is more. So she just chose to not to move. Whereas the other female, which I mentioned, she moved like around 160 kilometers, whereas the other juvenile, which we tagged in 2013, chose to move 260 kilometers. So it's actually depends upon each individual animal and how they are actually seeing the river.
Right. And so, and the next question for you is that how was the population estimation done for gharials in the wild?
So usually there is an estimated population happens with a boat survey and stationary survey. So we actually do a lot of stationary surveys rather than a boat survey. The difference between is boat survey, we start from an upstream point and then we just move along the river. There will be an observer and there will be an writer for the observer. So the observer tells and the writer writes. So it can be multiplied. There can be two observers and two writers also, and then they tally among each of the observing sessions, and then it will happen throughout the river stretch. Stationary counts has to happen in the same time at all the points, so that you have data from all the points, so that you are not going in one place on first day and then going to the second place on second day. So in between the time, the animals from first place might actually move to the second place. The stationary count is a little bit tricky, so you have to deploy many peoples, but in boat survey there will be few peoples. But stationary count will be more accurate than boat. So that's all.
Right. And the next question for you is that for initiating an ex situ conservation program, say in zoos, uh, for gharials, what parameters should be looked at before initiation? Is there any specifics that are required?
First requirement is bless you. First requirement is actually the pen itself. It should be having a natural basking platform, as well as the main trick actually happens is during the breeding and the nesting time. So if you guys remember the picture which I showed you, where the lot of gharials are basking in one place. So usually in breeding time of the year, they don't really need an elevated sand or anything. So they just need a normal sandbar, which is just kind of same level of the water also. Little higher than the water is more than enough for the breeding seasons. But during nesting season, they definitely need this inclined nesting banks. So it differs upon different time of the year. So when we are in zoos, when we are trying to construct the environment, we have to keep all these factors in mind, especially.
Right. So those were the questions for you. Now we move on to the questions
Thank you.
for Madam Angela. So, ma'am, the first question for you is, are there any research activities that are being conducted by the zoo presently?
Regarding the gharials,
No, in general.
no, we are now mostly monitoring on the gharial. We are trying to work out on the growth statistics and how the gharial will be placed later on, so that we can go in a bigger scale later on.
Right. And ma'am, the second question for you is that what were the challenges that were faced during the breeding of gharials that had been undertaken by the zoo?
The main problem was the viability of the eggs. Earlier also they had tried, but this time then they started using the same sand that was in the nest. And then the plastic containers, the exact depth, the exact position was maintained this time. And the temperature control was static temperature control, which was maintained for 5 to 6 times a day. The temperature and the humidity were checked. I mean, it was monitored on our hourly. So I think it was a better monitoring, and I think dedicated staff will be very successful in having.
Right. And ma'am, the next question for you is what are the future plans of the zoo?
Future plans of the zoo is to have, I said we want to have more deer enclosures with, we just have two spotted deer now, so we'll be getting bucking deer and sambar, because these are what nature naturally and found in the jungle. Then we want to do the fishing cat. The fishing cat also, right, go for awareness for fishing cats. This part of the district. Other is part the structural turtles. Structural turtles are found in each and every pond. So we want to do some conservation measures for and for statistics. Statistics, we want to have some kind of statistics. So what kind of ponds we want, the exact population, and the exact and take care of all of Aditi, what will be the status of the structural turtles, or what can we do about it?
Right, ma'am. And the last question for you is that considering that Rasikbeel Zoo is the only zoo in the region, what is the main attraction for visitors in the zoo?
Right now, I think the Gharial Hatchery, which is a main attraction right now, and I think Makkah. We have Makkah, so children are really coming to see the Makkah.
All right. So, ma'am, those were the questions for you. And with that, we come to the end or a week
Can
7.
I ask one question? Can I ask one question?
Sure. Please go ahead.
help me since we have 42 hatchling. So now they are like almost like 1.5 feet the average height. So can you suggest me what would be the size? They want to move the gharials now to another enclosure, right? Can you exactly tell me what would be the perfect dimension for me to shift it?
Can I just repeat the question? I couldn't actually
Okay.
hear the parts of it.
I have 52 hatchlings right now with me, right?
Mhm.
So now it is like 1 feet to 1.5 feet average height, the mother
Okay.
length. Now we are planning to shift it to another enclosure. So do you have any suggestions for me? What would be the exact order? Should I shift 42 in one go? You want me to put it up in batches? Or what is the kind of the enclosure or the passing area, the water, the pond area, how much, what would be?
Yeah, see, I do have some specific drawing enclosures from back in MCBT when I was volunteering over there. So I can actually share if you just drop me an your email here. I can just share you that thing. And as well as I will leave you my contact number also because it's depends upon how you want to develop this particular place. I think it will be more feasible if you keep them in batches like 15 to 20 in one batch like that, so that will gives more space for them to bask, as well as it will be very easy for the keeper also to keep an eye on all the individuals, because otherwise they will be crumped on each other, especially in the upcoming winters and all. You can actually literally see the animals will be like on top of each other because they just try to conserve their energy just by piling up on each other. That's a typical situation which we see in husbandries of zoos and all. But the actual ideal thing is to have some infrared lights or some heat lamps across the enclosure so that the animals are more spread out rather than clumping on each other. And especially just minimize the feeding during the winter times so they don't actually eat. Yeah, yeah, so they don't eat or metabolize because these are ectotherm animals, so they actually generate their body heat by the environmental energy, how the heat generate across them around them. So just minimize the feed half or maybe quarter in winters, and then increase it in summer, so that gives.
Right. Thank
Yeah,
you, flying us because this is also
sure. Yeah, definitely we will.
Right. Thank you so much once again. And with this, we come to the end for our week 17 Know Your Species, Know Your Zoo talk. On behalf of the Central Zoo Authority, I would like to thank both Mr. Janardhan and to you, Ms. Angela, for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us for this talk. I would also like to thank the audience for being with us throughout the talk and have been patient. I hope you've known more about the Gharial as well as the Rasikbeel Mini Zoo. And I would also like to inform them that Rasikbeel Zoo is doing outreach activities through this week. So if you are in Kuch Bihar, do visit the zoo for taking part in the activities that they have planned. And we will be back next week with our week 71 talk, which will be on the hog deer and on the Dina Deer Park. So do tune in for that talk next week from 4 to 5 p.m. on Wednesday. And with this, we come to the end for today's talk once again. Namaskar. Hello.